We're approaching testing season in Arizona and around the country. It's that time of year when 3rd to 8th grade students and 10th grade students spend hours and hours taking a battery of standardized high-stakes tests. Hours and hours and hours. And that's on top of the hours they've already spent during the rest of the year learning how to take the tests and taking practice tests to see if they're ready to take the real test, and then taking more practice tests. Classroom activities that don't help students maximize their scores on the fill-in-the-bubble tests. Subject matter that's not on the test, that all gets shoved to the back corner of the room to be taken care of if there's time when the teacher is done with teaching to the test. Thanks to George Bush's No Child Left Behind, and also thanks to Barack Obama's Race to the Top, the motto for our public schools these days should be, I test, therefore I am. It's all about the test. Yearly high-stakes testing is a law of the land, and there's nothing anyone can do about it until the law is changed. Or can they? Can parents and others who think our obsession with testing is harming our children do something right now? The answer is yes. People can support the growing national opt-out movement, which encourages parents, teachers, administrators, and legislators to throw a monkey wrench into our high-stakes testing regimen. Opting out of a test isn't easy. There's a law that children have to take the yearly test after all, and it isn't for everyone. But the more people out there who know about the movement and support it, the greater its chances of success. In some states, not in Arizona, but elsewhere, the opt-out movement is growing more and more substantial. It's gaining strength day by day. But before I talk about what's happening around the country, let's begin with an opt-out primer. If parents want their children to opt out of the high-stakes test, how do they do it? Well, there are two basic techniques. The first can be referred to using protest language from my era in the 60s as, what if they gave a test and nobody came? Using more up-to-date parlance, it might be called a sick-out protest. The idea is, on test day, children stay home and they don't take the test. That's simple, right? Well, unfortunately, it's not so simple. There's a problem with the strategy. The testing window is about 3 weeks long, and if children return to school anytime during those weeks, they'll be told to take the test. Now, most parents aren't willing to have their children miss all that class time, and they're right. No one wants to hold a child out of school for 3 weeks. The second test can be called, hearkening back to the 60s once again, hell no, we won't test. Though the current term of art is sit and stare. If the children are given a paper test, the opt-outers break the seal, possibly fill in their names and other requested information, and that's it. They don't answer any of the questions. Same thing with a computerized test. Log in, then sit there and stare at the screen until time's up. The beauty of this technique is the student has participated in the testing, and you can't really force a child to read the questions and go through the possible answers and bubble in the best choice. If they don't do it, they don't do it. And there's no sense in making them take it again, right? They'll just do the same thing. But unfortunately, there's still a problem. If the student takes a sit and stare 0 on the test, the state can ignore the 0, just throw it out, and average up all the rest of the scores from the students who actually took the test and did work on the test. Or, and this is the problem, the state can insist that the 0 score is averaged in with the rest of the students in the class and in the school, which means the overall average score goes down. And if a sizable number of students take a 0, their zeros are averaged in, the score goes way down. So you can see the problem. A parent and child's decision to take a 0 hurts the teachers and the school by lowering the total test score. A teacher can be labeled ineffective. A school's state grade can go down. And in a worst-case scenario, the school can be labeled a failing school and be shut down. It's a terrible choice to give to parents. Go with your conscience and hurt your child's teacher in school, or go along with the program and have your child take the test. Many states, including Arizona, say a sit and stare 0 will be included in the score totals. But even with all these problems, the opt-out movement is gaining momentum in some states, like, for instance, New York. Last year, over 30,000 New York students opted out of the state standardized testing. Amazingly, the sky didn't fall, the world didn't come to an end. Students whose parents wanted their children to opt out were encouraged to come to school. Some were given alternative activity in another room, and some had to sit and stare at nothing until the test was over. But in most cases, there was no punishment. Often the teachers supported the students. Some teachers have even requested to opt out of administering the tests themselves, and some principals have supported the opt-out protest as well. This year, supporters in New York are hoping to double the opt-out numbers. Then there's Louisiana. Governor Bobby Jindal was once a big supporter of Common Core, but now he has presidential ambitions. He's looking at going for the Republican nomination, and it seems he's changed his mind and decided to go along with the members of the Republican base who are anti-Common Core, and therefore anti-Common Core testing. So, Jindal recently issued an executive order saying if students decide to take a 0 on their tests, the teachers in schools should not be penalized. The tests with zeros should be ignored, not averaged in with the scores of students who took the tests. Meanwhile, a few Louisiana school boards around the state have voted to support parents who decide their children should opt out. One of the most interesting aspects of the opt-out movement is people on the left, like many of the supporters in New York, and on the right, like those in Louisiana, are on the same side in this fight, though often for very different reasons. Let's look at Boulder, Colorado. There, 5,000 seniors opted out of a required standardized test. It was 0 degrees outside, but some students stood in the cold with signs that read "Education, not standardization," while they collected food for the local food bank. That's wonderful. Meanwhile, the students inside were writing letters to state legislators explaining why they skipped the test. In Chicago, the public school district has decided to only give the state test to about 10% of its schools. That's 66 schools out of more than 600 schools in the district. The State Board of Education is threatening to withhold money if Chicago goes through with it. I have no idea how this is going to turn out. So far, neither side has blinked. I can go on. In New Jersey, a number of school districts have said they support students who opt out, and Newark's new mayor, who was the principal of one of the city's high schools, said, and this is a quote, "I stand in solidarity with our opposition to this regime of standardized testing and call upon the district to meet parental decisions to opt out with educationally appropriate, not punitive responses, including alternative settings and activities whenever possible." In Philadelphia, teachers at one school have told interested parents, many of them low income, many of them with children who are in ELL programs because their English isn't their first language, how to go about opting out, and 100 parents have submitted the necessary letters to the school. The district is not happy, and there may be some kind of punishment for the teachers, but the teachers say they're simply informing parents of their rights. Well, testing begins in March and April in most states. I've been searching for articles about opting out on the internet lately, and the number of articles has been growing exponentially. There's a lot of nationwide interest in the movement, including at least 2 national organizations, one called Fair Test and the other called United Opt Out, which just hosted a national conference in Florida a few weeks ago. It wasn't too long ago, the high-stakes testing, which used to be associated with No Child Left Behind and is now linked to Common Core, looked like a done deal. Now, yearly standardized testing is encountering growing resistance, and at this point, things could go either way.
Well, it's interesting, Dave, to see what's going on, nationally. And in Arizona, we haven't seen quite as much of a movement. There has been the anti-Common Core movement that has been strong here, and it will be interesting to see as Common Core is implemented starting this spring, if there will be a movement among that side of the aisle to try and keep their students from taking the test.
Our new superintendent, Diane Douglas, who's anti-Common Core, has made some rather, I think, good statements about the problems with testing. And just recently, her department said that she thinks the test is going to be a disaster this year because the schools aren't ready. Their computers aren't ready. Their networks aren't ready. They're going to have to take it on paper tests, but the teachers haven't been prepped on the teacher test, so that could be a problem. And on another front, Chris Ackerley, a new representative from Southern Arizona, a Republican, has put forth a bill in the legislature saying that opt-out is okay. So there are things going on that front, and I don't know what's going to happen on either of these, but We'll see.
Well, I think in terms of opt-out, it would be very smart for the state just to completely opt out of the Common Core right now because of the fact, I mean, apart from some of the other arguments against it, what you just stated, that the state is not prepared, our teachers have not been prepared, our students have not been prepared, and to suddenly now switch to a new test and with all the high stakes associated with that, you know, whether you keep your job or not as a teacher or a principal, whether your school remains open or is forced to go through a turnaround program. I mean, right now we have so many punitive measures linked to a school's test score. It's ridiculous.
Well, fasten your seatbelts, folks. This is going to be a bumpy ride this year.